let's go. So let me give you the brief kind of summary of the Medrash, super quick, because we've got a lot of Kabbalah to get through tonight. It's very deep, it's very intense, I hope. And those on Facebook, nice to see you. Please tag your friends, everybody, tag your friends. We want to get more and more and more and more people, please God. So tag away. Here we go. The parsha is called Shalach Lacha. Shalach means to send. Hashem says to Moses, Shalach Lacha Anoshim, send for yourself spies. Here's the background, everybody. The Jewish people, this, by the way, happened a year after Israel. Happened, this week's Sedra happened on the 29th of Sivan, which is really interesting, because we're coming up to that. It's amazing how always, normally when we read the weekly Sedra, we're not necessarily up to that in the calendar. This is one of those weeks where it always fits in. Because as I said, this story is very, very germane to us. The reason, my friends, I'm speaking to you from London and you are around the world is because we haven't yet fixed up the sin of the spies. The sin of the spies happened on the 9th of Av, on Tisha B'Av, where the destruction of the temple happened on Tisha B'Av, meaning we still haven't yet fixed it up. So everything we're learning tonight is part of your work to fix up what's gone wrong with the world, what's gone wrong with humanity, what's gone wrong with ourselves, and how to bring Mashiach. This story very much is setting the seeds, it's the planting of the seeds of the destruction of the temple and the 2,000 years of exile we've been in. So it's very, very practical. Here's what happened. Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu from the beginning that you're coming out of Egypt to get to Israel. We didn't come out of Egypt to go traveling in the desert. That wasn't the point. We didn't come out of Egypt to play sports. We came out of Egypt to be of service to Hashem in Israel. Israel is Hashem's country. That's where we need to be. And Hashem told us it's going to be amazing. The words he said, Ze'eret Zavat Chalav Udvash. It's a land flowing with milk and honey. Now, let me ask you, you guys, you were the Jewish people, because we were all there. We were all reincarnations of those who were the Sinai. So we were all there. So Sivan, when you were there, and when Moshe says, okay, let's go to Israel, Hashem says it's time to start moving that way, surely we would have all said, go on chat, what would you have said, everybody? What would be, go on Larry, put in the chat. What would have been our reaction to let's go to Israel? The reaction, I would hope, because you're all the hardcore black belts of the spiritual world, you'd be saying, Yalla, I'm there, sure, let's do it. Let's get on with it. Some of you might say, can we go business class? But whatever, we'd all want to go. However, now we need to wrap our heads around this. The highest level of a spiritual generation ever since Sinai, from the past 3,300 years, was this generation. These were the holiest of the holies. Like, I had the pleasure of meeting the greatest sage of our generation, Chaim Kanievsky. He was, and I think he'd be the first one to say, like, nothing of nothing in comparison to that. They were spiritual giants. They were the generation that Hashem descended the manna from heaven. The generation that Hashem had clouds of glory. We have Waze on our phone. Hashem had a spiritual Waze called clouds of glory, which navigated us. We don't have that. We didn't have to go and get Deliveroo. It was delivered to us by Hashem with the manna from heaven. It was miracles, overt miracle time. And yet they did not say, let's go. They said the following: we need to send spies. We're afraid. We're worried. And this is kind of on the surface. Torah is like an onion. So I'm now starting with the outer layer. And as we go through tonight, we're going to go into the inner layers. The outer layer, what you read when you see the words. They said, we need to send spies. We need to scout out the lands. We need to find out where the enemies are. We're going to have to conquer it. It's going to be a battle. It's going to be a war. We hear our great nemesis, Amalek, is there. We need to check it out. We need to check it out. Why would they say that, ladies and gentlemen? You put on Facebook and on Instagram as well, you can put the message in. Why? But you wouldn't say that. We'd say, Hashem, you want me to go, whatever you say, I'm with you. We've seen what happens when you go against Hashem with the 10 plagues, splitting of the Red Sea. We're with you. But yeah, this is the highest generation. And we didn't say we're with you. We wanted to say we want to send spies. It's a little bit like if I were to say to you, guys, I found you a really cool villa this summer. to go and chill at. So what would you all say to me? You'd say, cool, can I see the photos? I want to see, like, you go on Google Maps and you go and check it out. You're looking up the reviews on Google, on Amazon, right? Everyone's looking. They kind of wanted to see the reviews. They wanted to see it with their own eyes. I get that in our generation in 2022, when I say come and have a villa in the summer, but when Hashem is saying to you, come to Israel, why on earth would you say, nah, don't trust you, Hashem. I need to see it with my own eyes. How can we even fathom that? Question number one. Hold that question. By the way, has anyone got a quick answer? Want to quickly message me? What are you thinking? Because obviously they were super great. They were holy. Why would, do you want to message in on the chat? Why would they say that? Anybody? I'm not seeing any messages here. Chat. Let's have a look on this chat. See if anything coming in. Just the Allah. Okay, so we'll get there. We'll give you deep answers soon. Now, Moshe Rabbeinu is now really confused because Moshe Rabbeinu has got a problem here. On one hand, he's Hashem's agent. On the other hand, he's our leader. And this is what we wanted. So Moshe was always caught in between the Jewish people and Hashem. Poor guy. Rough job. What does he do? So Moshe Rabbeinu says amazingly in it, and again, a little insight of how the Torah works. The story in Deuteronomy is often a repeat with embellishments and additions of what went on. So actually the way you're meant to read the Torah, especially the stories in the desert, is you also have to look at the story in Devarim, in Deuteronomy, to kind of flesh out what happened with all the stories of the desert, including the story of the spies. And they've got this line in Deuteronomy where Moshe Rabbeinu says, it was good in my eyes. I thought it was a great idea to send spies. So now we've got a bigger problem. Number one, why would the people say send spies? Number two, why did Moshe Rabbeinu, the greatest sage of all time ever, go and say, fantastic idea, spies, love it, awesome. Let's send 12 of them. And that's what he did. Hashem said, Shalach lecha anoshim. If you look at that first verse now, it says, Shalach lecha anoshim. Send for yourself spies. The question is, ask Rashi, why does it say the word lecha? Why does it say the words you? It should have just said shlach anoshim, send men. Send men. He says shlach lecha. Says Rashi, this is already code, and this is what I mean. If you just look at the words in the Old Testament, you'll say, oh, Hashem is saying we should go. So obviously Hashem was happy with going. Shalach lecha anoshim. It's like when I say to my kids, and they say, Daddy, I really want to go somewhere that I really don't want them to go. I say, listen, it's your life. Do what you want. That doesn't mean I want them to go. It just means they're adults. They're independent. What's the phrase? Now you've made your beds, you lie in it. Anyone ever been told that once in their life? Right? So I was told that many times as a naughty child. And it seems Hashem is telling Moshe Rabbeinu that. Shlach lecha, you think it's a good idea, so you go. Fine. You're going to regret it. Oh my, you're going to regret it. So that's the first understanding. It's not, Hashem did not want us to go. Hashem allowed us to go because we have something called free will. Can you imagine if every time we wanted to sin, Hashem stopped us? We'd be angels, we'd be perfect. That's not the way life works. Sometimes people say, you know what? The fact that I did the sin means obviously Hashem kind of is happy with it. By the way, in the highest spiritual level, there's a great Hasidic sage called the Ishpitzer that says on a deep, highest spiritual level, in the higher world, Hashem, it was his will. Otherwise, it wouldn't have happened, in truth, whatever that means. But ultimately, in our reality, in our world, in the Olam Asiyah, there's 4 worlds, Julia. We're in the world called Olam Asiyah. In the lower world, in our lower world, we have free will, and we are reliable for those choices. And in our world, Hashem does not want us to do it, because in the Torah, it goes contrary to the Torah. So Hashem did not want us to send spies, but he allowed us to do that. And Moshe Rabbeinu, but then Hashem said, you better send the best of the best. And he sent the tzaddikim. So question number 3 now. Someone's going to have to remind me of these questions. I'm literally just going for it in my mind. Okay, so question number 1 we asked is, why did the Jewish people send spies? Question number 2 we asked, why does Moshe Rabbeinu agree? Question number 3 now is, why send the best of the best? If it's a military campaign, like send like Mossad. Do you know what I mean? Send like the paratroopers. Send those that know how to fight against Amalek. Why would you send these very great holy rabbis with long white beards and their black hats and their long black coats or their robes, whatever they were wearing in those days? but they were the holiest dudes out there. They were the number ones of each tribe. He was the leader of Reuven, and it's not just like, he wasn't a military leader, he was a spiritual leader. They were enlightened, holy, spiritual, prophetic individuals. And these were the ones that were sent. Question number 3 is, what's going on? I thought the issue was like a military problem. So why are you sending spiritual guides? Question number 3. So anyway, he sends them, and he sent one from each tribe. And then he senses Moshe Rabbeinu, because now he's got instincts. My dear friends, I need to teach you how to trust your intuition. When you're really tuned into Hashem, you're going to have intuition, and you need to know how to trust it. Moshe started having intuition. Uh-oh, this isn't going to go well. Something's going wrong. And he quickly sees his student and disciple Joshua, Yehoshua, who's the one who obviously took on after Moshe Rabbeinu died, and he's the one who took over. He was the greatest sage other than Moshe Rabbeinu there. And he says to Joshua, I have to change your name. I have to put the Yud and the Hey next to your name. Till now you were called Hosea. Now you're going to be called Yehoshua. May Hashem save you from the spies. That's where we learn Meshane Shem, Meshane Mazal. Myself, when I got very sick years back, the Kabbalist changed my name, and it helped me tremendously. It really works. And this is one of the first times in the Bible, even though the first time is with Abraham and Sarah, where the whole name change takes place. But this was another name change of Yehoshua, which is, by the way, very deep, putting the Yud and the Hey together, which is really what life's all about, putting the Yud and the Hey of Hashem's name together. That's what we're doing in this world. But there was this other man called Caleb, the head of the tribe of Judah, who was also very good. And he didn't give him a blessing. And then Caleb realized he's in trouble because he's feeling that intuition. And this is the first time he went to pray at a grave. Some of you know, I took some of my community here in London to Hungary to this very great sage called Rabbi to pray at a grave, because it works to pray at a Saddic's grave. And we learned it out from this week's Sedra, because it says Caleb went to which grave? Anyone want to put in? Which is the grave he went to? Anyone know? He went to the number 1 grave of all graves in Hebron, the place where the physical world meets the spiritual world. That's what Hebron means. Chibur Nun, the connection to the 50th level. That's why Abraham understood Sarah had to be buried there. That's where we're all going to ascend into the next world via Hebron. It's the place literally where heaven meets earth. And that's why Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, they're buried there. Sarah, Rebecca, Leah is buried there. Adam and Eve is buried there. And Caleb went and prayed by his grandparents, said, I need your help. Please advocate to Hashem. Advocate to Hashem. Be my lawyers in heaven. There's going to be a big balagan. There's going to be a big problem here. Save me. Save me. What's they being saved from? I don't understand. They're going with the greats of the greats. There's a question, which is, why didn't Hashem give Caleb a blessing? Why only Joshua? Deep question. I'll let you think about it. See if that's your homework. All right, Larry, you have to get back to me next week with that. Why did Moshe Rabbeinu only bless Joshua, not Caleb? All right, Kitty, I'm going to ask my wife to test you on that. See if you can come up with an answer. You have to do some Googling. Okay. Happy for you to message me answers, and I'll let you know if it's right or not. So then what happened? They started going, it's a 40-day, back to number 40. It's always 40 days, how Hashem destroyed the world with the flood. 40 days, Moshe Rabbeinu went up to get the Torah. 40 days for a fetus to become into a neshama. After 40 days in a mother's womb, that's when the neshama comes in. So once again, it was 40 days, which was the traveling, which, by the way, 29th of Sivan. Now we know 40 days after 29th of Sivan is the 9th of Av. Is Tisha B'Av, is the 9th of Av. That's when they came back. So they went, and there were giants, and there was Amalek. There was these really scary giants, which is very interesting why there's specifically, I found a reason this morning why there were giants there. You know some of their names: Achiman, Shayish, Talmai. There was Amalek near there. And Hashem made tremendous miracles for them. Hashem really, really helped them along the way, tremendously. He made one of the great people there called Job die, and there was a huge funeral to essentially distract everyone, so everybody, the spies, could like get on with checking out Israel without anyone seeing them. But tragically, they'd lost the plot by then. They decided to come out with an evil report, which we'll explain in a minute. And on their return home, 10 of the 12 spies came back on Tisha B'Av, and they saw the Jewish people learning with Moshe and Aaron about the laws of Israel, the laws of Chala, the laws of Arla. And they said mockingly, you won't be needing that, so we're not going there. Change the plan, everybody. It's not going to happen. You don't want Israel. It's really, and they said the following. They said, you're right, it's land flowing with milk and honey. But, and they said this tragic word, but, Ephes, but. You should never say but, everybody. It's all about the but. They said, but it's a land which eats its inhabitants. In other words, Hashem made a miracle and allowed a big funeral to take place to distract everybody, and yet they use that to say people are dying there. There's like plagues, people are dying, and there's giants there, and there's Amaleks there, and the fruits are so massive, and it's impossible. There's no way we can. They said we can't win that war, which is mad. It's heresy. We won the war against Amalek. We won the war against Egyptians. Well, we couldn't beat a few Canaanites or Pelishtim around there. These were the men of the greats of the greats. And when Kalev and Joshua started trying to fight Hashem's corner, they then literally spoke Lashon Hara about Israel, spoke Lashon Hara about Hashem, spoke Lashon Hara about Moshe Rabbeinu. It was one of the worst sins of all time, because the higher you are when you sin. And by the way, to try and stop and derail our entry into the land of Israel, we have to understand Israel is so central to our religion. It's so central to our religion. That's why, in a way, if you are anti-Zionist, you are anti-Semitic, because this is who we are. We are the people of Israel. Even if we're not living there, we should be longing for it. If you're not longing to be there, you're not holding, sorry to say. You need to be, when you're tuned into spirituality, your soul is craving to be by the Western Wall. It's craving to be walking in the land of Israel. That's our home. That's our spiritual home. And they tried to derail that. And for that, it was one of the most strictest punishments of all time, tragic punishments. Hashem, the spies started dissuading the Jewish people from going, and everyone starts crying. Oh my gosh, we don't want to go. Let's turn back to Egypt. And Hashem says, you're crying for nothing. Now there's going to have to be something to cry about. You don't know what you've done. And this created a ripple effect forever until this Teshuvah, until Mashiach. And the initial effect was, for the next 40 years, any man between 20 and 60 now could not go into Israel. Done. 40 years now we're wandering. And every Tisha B'Av, a man between 20 and 60 had to dig their own grave and lie in it and see if Hashem was going to allow them to live for the next year. And by the end of those 40 years, that's when it was time to move. It was time to get into Israel. And by the way, the punishment for the spies were the worst of the worst. They had to dig their own graves. I don't want to go into it too much if you're squeamish and before you go to sleep, but essentially a worm started coming into their belly button and started going through them and just eating them up, because of they sinned through their mouth. So they were literally getting eaten alive by these like man-eating worms. And they felt it because they needed to feel the tragedy that they'd done. So what is going on? How can we understand this surreal story? Because as we said, they are the highest of the high. If I would say to you tonight, let's go to Israel, we'd just be going. What was the whole problem? So here we go. Let's begin like this. It says, Rashi starts with something very interesting. Rashi says, very first Rashi, why is it that at the end of last week's Sedra, we learn about Miriam, who spoke Lashon Hara about Moses? Very briefly, Moshe Rabbeinu was receiving prophecy 24/7, and that's why he couldn't stay married to Tzipporah and be with her, because Hashem could come to him anytime. So Hashem asked him to separate a sense from Tzipporah. He didn't tell Miriam that, and Miriam just jumped to a conclusion that Moses wasn't being a very nice husband. So she went talking to Aaron about it. Hashem was not impressed. She got leprosy. She had to go to the other side of the city. She had to go by herself. Isolation, COVID isolation, even in those days. Says Rashi, why is this juxtaposed to the story of the spies? Answers Rashi, because to teach you that the spies just saw what happened when you spoke Lashon Hara, and they should have learned from it. And it compounded their failure from the fact they didn't learn from it. Says the Baal Shem Tov, and this is lesson number 1 for you, my friends, which hopefully can be a game changer in your life. Says the Baal Shem Tov, when things happen in your life, in your surroundings, in your family, in your friends, in the media, whatever you see with your eyes, Hashem wanted you to see it. It wasn't random. We are shown lessons from Hashem the whole time. We're all in the university of Hashem without realizing it. Life is a constant place of study where Hashem is trying to help you and guide you. And specifically, if we see sinning around us, step number one, okay, Hashem showed me that, so I need to be really even more vigilant not to do it. Go even deeper, says the Baal Shem Tov. There was a word in last week's Sedra called crystal eye. Crystal eye was one of the words describing for the man. It was this like kind of crystal that could, like a mirror. Says the Baal Shem Tov, actually, when you see something, what do we generally do? Let's say you see someone behaving really badly, you see someone losing their temper, like, shocking behavior. We would never behave like that. Says the Baal Shem Tov, the fact that you've seen it means Hashem wants to show you it because there's a little bit of you which is doing that. You are reflecting the reality around you. Julia, it's your first time with us. One of the deep Kabbalistic messages, we believe reality is inner to outer, or inner affects the outer. Most of society thinks your externality affects the internality. In Kabbalah, it's the opposite. We are this spiritual radar, which where we're holding affects our surroundings. We're happy, we'll see happiness around us. We're sad, we create sadness. We're angry, even a little bit. The way the Baal Shem Tov says, just a little bit of anger, you're going to see anger around you to tell you, like a mirror. Hashem's saying, sort it out, work on it. And we do the opposite. We in our pride kind of look down at those around us sinning, thinking, oh, how are they acting that way? And the truth is, we're only being shown it because we do it. Everything is an internal spiritual experience and lesson. So step one was the Meraglim were given the opportunity not to sin just before. They were shown the severity of speaking bad gossip, speaking Lashon Hara, and they didn't do, and they missed out. And that's a big lesson to us. There's times just before we're going to sin, normally Hashem's going to give you a chance. You're going to get an opportunity to see the consequences of our mistakes, and we've got to capitalize. We've got to be strong. We've got to say, thank you, Hashem. Okay, thank you. I've learned my lesson. I'm sorry. Hashem, protect me. Shema Yisrael, do whatever you need to do to chain yourself to a chair. Literally put some handcuffs and just, stop yourself from sinning if need be, or jump in a mikveh or whatever it may be. Go to the Talmud says sometimes if you feel about to sin, just run to shul. Just run to shul. Just put yourself in shul. I'll never forget once, it was 1 a.m. One of my students called me up saying, Rabbi, I just need to come over right now. I'm like, okay, it's like 1 a.m. I said, what's going on? He said, I'm in a bar. I'm about to do something that I know I shouldn't do. And if I don't come with you, I'm going with someone else who you really want me to go with. I said, come round. We've got a lot to speak about. And literally, that was a true story. And that you've got to literally sometimes just run to a spiritual haven to protect you if need be. And that's what the spies should have done. And tragically, they did. So we asked the question, why is it that the spies did as they did? And answer number one is the following. Like the next peel of the onion. It's going to get deeper, everybody. This is just like the easy part so far. There is a principle called, and it's Kitty and Julius. Well, Kitty's like third time, Julius first time. Sivan and Larry and Cyril are like super experienced, so they know this principle. It's called Hishtadlut. Hishtadlut. What is the principle of Hishtadlut? Or as I like to say in these Yeshivish parlance, Hishtadlus. Hishtadlus means we're not allowed to rely on miracles. We've got to put effort. Hashem's asked us to put effort in. When you fight a war, you can't just sit back and rely on a miracle. You got to go to war. It says in the Bible, by the sweat of your brow, you shall eat bread. That's why every single one of us sweat to get the finances to come in. We can't just sit back and say, Hashem, I'm just going to say some Tehillim. And then please let you know where I live. And just money's going to come through my letterbox. It's fine. I'm saying to him, okay. And Wouldn't it be lovely? But unfortunately, because we sinned with Adam and Eve, we were part of Adam and Eve. One of the consequences of that is now we can't rely on a miracle. And we have to do ishtadlus. We have to put the effort in. Therefore, that's why in today's day and age, if God forbid there's a war around Israel, we have to do due diligence and check it out and send the spies in. And guess what? Mossad are all over the place right now. They're in lots of countries right now that they shouldn't be disguised because they have to do what it says in the Torah about sending spies. The problem was the hishtadlus depends on your spiritual level, my friends. So for us mere mortals, we have to go to work. We have to fight in an army. We have to engage in the natural world. But my dear friends, on their level, where they were in the generation, where they saw the miracles that they saw, surely they didn't have to. Surely they were living miraculous times. The first answer is going to be, for them, it was too much. For them, it was a lack of faith. When you are in the community of Moshe Rabbeinu as your rabbi, and Aaron the high priest as the assistant rabbi, that's who your community is. You don't send spies. Do you know what's really interesting? When Moshe Rabbeinu died and Joshua took them in, we sent spies, and they were right to send spies. If you read the book of Joshua, they sent spies, and they weren't criticized for sending spies because by then we descended to a much more natural level. But when you're playing the big boys, when you're playing in the arena of the miracles, then God forbid if you do too much ishtadlus, you're in trouble. And I always tell you the famous story of Joseph who was on that level when he was in the prison in Egypt and wanted to get out, and he interpreted the butler's dream. And he said to the butler, hey, mention me to Pharaoh, mention me to Pharaoh. Hashem said, you should know better, Joseph. We would need to do that. We would need to give out business cards if you're in prison and you've got a chance to get out. You, Joseph, with the miracles happening to you, you should just be saying Psalms. You should be relying on me alone. And that's what it means in Tehillim. One of my favorite Tehillim in number 32. I think I told Sivan about it this week. Hashem, chesed yisov avenu. If you have trust in Hashem, kindness encircles us. So the tzaddik that doesn't engage in the natural, he's literally living in that. As mere mortals, we have to engage in the natural, but this is key, everybody. But we need to have faith, not in the natural, but faith in Hashem, faith in the Tehillim. And the more we put our faith in Hashem, that's more blessings. The more blessings come our way. And I'll give you a few stories to illustrate that. So a few stories, everybody. Story number one. The Chafetz Chaim, Yisrael Meir Kagan, one of the greatest sages we've had in the past 200 years, living in Radin. He's the one who wrote the Mishnah Berurah, Guard Your Tongue. There was a great rabbi called the Ponovitch Rav who came to see him, who wanted to go and meet with the great rabbi and get a blessing. And something very strange happened that day. It's a Monday afternoon. And he sits with the Chafetz Chaim and asks to get a blessing. And the Chafetz Chaim kind of looks at his aura, closes his eyes, and says, before I give you a blessing, we need to talk. And the Chafetz Chaim just starts sharing with him hours of Torah. And the Ponovitch Rav did not understand. Like normally he had a few minutes with this rabbi. And he's just talking and talking and talking. And the Chafetz Chaim is like, wouldn't stop. He wouldn't stop. And literally about 3.5 hours later, finally the Chafetz Chaim stopped. He gave him a blessing. He goes, now you're going to be okay. He left to go, goes on his carriage, and they hear the news. The train that he was meant to go on that now he missed had been derailed, and many people died, and he was meant to have died that day. And the Chafetz Chaim, who had the intuition, who to know about it, who had his trust in Hashem, he was plugged in, and therefore by the Ponovitch Rav holding on to the Chafetz Chaim's coattails, his life was saved, because the tzaddik works. What is the phrase in Habakkuk? Tzaddik be'emunaso yichyeh. The tzaddik lives through his emunah. Now, this is the story that's going to illustrate the whole tension here. Are you ready? It's quite a complex story if you think about it. Now, listen there. Back to the Chafetz Chaim. That was like a little intro into the spiritual level of who the Chafetz Chaim was. This true story happens in the year 5667, right? We're now in the year 5780 to 82. So do the maths. Happened in 5667. in Radin, and the Chofetz Chaim was away with his family, and they came home from the summer trip and found out there was a terrible fire in their street. And half the street, the houses had just burnt down. It got to the Chofetz Chaim's house, it stopped. And for the next 26 houses, which is the numerical value of Hashem's name, by the way, on the way down, they were saved. So Chofetz Chaim's house was saved, and the next 26 houses were saved. True story. Afterwards, when people got to hear about there was this fire in the street, so before long, the insurers came around saying, we've obviously got a problem in the street. We recommend you take out some fire insurance, some house insurance. Next time, God forbid you're in a situation. The Chofetz Chaim was away, and the family thought it was a very smart idea, so they took out the fire insurance. When the Chofetz Chaim came home and heard what had happened, he said, oh, yeah. Do you realize what you've done? A few weeks later, there was another fire. This time, the house was burnt down. True story. Let's understand. Again, for us mere mortals, this isn't relevant. We are meant to take out insurance. My wife makes sure we take out travel insurance and health insurance and life insurance and every kind of insurance under the sun. Most normal people take it out, and we should all take it out. We're not on the level of the Chofetz Chaim. But if you're on the level of the Chofetz Chaim, where your insurance is Hashem, you're someone who's in email contact with Hashem, then it's actually a lack of faith to put your faith in the insurers and to say, oh, it's okay because I've got insurance. After the Chofetz Chaim's family was saying, oh, Baruch Hashem, at least we're covered now. He says, Baruch Hashem. He says, don't Baruch Hashem me. It's because of you that the house burned down. If you wouldn't have taken out insurance, my house would still be there. It was your lack of bitachon, because it was the bitachon in trust which was protecting us. A miracle happened. There was a fire and it just stopped by the Chofetz Chaim's house because the bitachon was like the fire engine, like blew the fire out. That's what Hashem can do if you're living in that game. And the Chofetz Chaim was. His family wasn't. They took out insurance, burnt up his house. Again, we have to take out insurance. But not the Chofetz Chaim. And therefore, why is it relevant? Because the spies were on the level of the Chofetz Chaim. They shouldn't have needed to send spies. The moment they sent spies, you were doomed. Doomed. The Kedushas Levi, one of my favorite mystics, the Kedushas Levi, you like this, Sivan, the Kedushas Levi, Rabbi Yitzchak B'Ditchev, wasn't feeling well one day. He was in his room, and all the students were next door or learning, and they heard all of a sudden a big bang. And like, what's happened? And they went in, and they found the Rebbe was lying on the floor. And they helped him up. Are you okay? Anyway, a couple of hours later, he comes out the room, says, can I have a coffee? He sits with them a coffee. And they said, what happened, Rabbi? What happened? Listen to this. Said the Kedushas Levi, and this is deep. I wasn't feeling well. And I realized that's because my faith was a bit lacking. Because if my faith would have been stronger, if I'd have real faith in Hashem that everything's all right, I'll be feeling all right. So that means there's a bit of my gap in my faith. So I started saying, B'Potech B'Hashem, Chesed Yisrael Avenu, the one who has faith in Hashem, there's kindness. And I collapsed because I realized I wasn't saying it with 100% devotion. I was kind of like faking it. I was trying to say it, but I wasn't saying it, so it didn't work. It didn't protect me. I got up to walk, bang, because I didn't have the protection. So now I've worked on myself, and now I'm 100% there. I have 100% faith. I feel awesome now. I feel amazing. And what is the lesson of this? The lesson of it is faith can't be 40%, 60%. You know, I believe that when I'm going to, can you see this? This is the top of my water. I believe I'm going to let it go and it's going to drop down. You ready? Bang. Laws of gravity. One needs to have that same level of inevitability when you put your emunah in Hashem. So for example, if there's something you want, a salvation you want, Sivan's looking to, do a business deal, let's just say. So if you 100%, Hashem, I'm giving it over to you 100%, casting it off to you. And I know 100% it's all yours now. And I know it's going to go well. Bang. But if it's only 70%, 80%, it's not going to work. It needs 100%ism. And there's a level in psychology called neuro-linguistic programming, NLP, which is very similar. I myself, that's how I got a lot of better from my illness. Not just changed the name. I got into my mind was telling my body I suffered from something called ME. I couldn't move. I was in bed for a year of my life. And then I started saying, no, I can move. I can move. I started reprogramming my mind. There's a book from Dr. Sarno called Healing Back Pain. And he says the very same point, you've got to believe it 100%. If you just I might be better, it's not going to work. If you put your trust in Hashem 100%, watch the blessings that happen. And it seems that's the first mistake that Spies did. Let's go deeper. Let's go deeper. The Nesiv Shalom, the Slonim Rebbe explains, we asked, why did Moshe Rabbeinu think it was a good idea? And why did he send Tzaddikim? Remember that was questions. So question one we've answered now, because you send spies because of Ishtadlus, because it's the logical, natural thing to do. They were wrong because they were higher, but that was the reason they did it. 2 and 3 is interesting. Why did Moshe Rabbeinu tell them to do it? And why did he look for the great tzaddikim? If it was all to win a war, he should have sent the military leaders. Listen to the Nesiv Shalom. It's so beautiful I could cry. You ready? Spiritual people do spiritual things. When a physical event happens, there's a lot of spirituality behind the scenes. For us to enter into Israel, there was an incredible amount of spiritual of what work we had to do. And we also had to understand what the clippers were. What's a clipper? A clipper, I can say it now because the sun's out still. You shouldn't say it in the night, that word. It means a shell. It means a husk. When you have an orange, around the orange grows this peel, which protects the orange. Whenever you have holiness, every mitzvah has its own shell. Every country has its own shell. Shabbos has its clipper. That's why before Shabbos, I always tell people, be careful. There's normally arguments in the house. There's tension because Satan's trying to get you in a bad mood. Do you know why they went to Israel? To scout out the clippers, to scout out the spiritual demons, Satan's tricks that he's going to be pulling up his sleeves. What is the spiritual tension there? And what is the spiritual work we need to do? Let me explain. As some of you know, I have one of the most special parts of my life is I've been blessed to help people convert to Judaism. Incredible blessing from Hashem, because the people that convert are just so inspirational. But the journey of conversion is hard. The journey of conversion is a lot of inner work, tremendous amount of work. And it's not just work of got to keep a mitzvah. It's spiritual work. You're learning humility. You're learning the journey is a very intense journey, and humility is a prerequisite. You might need to learn the journey of eroding your ego. You might need to learn the journey of eroding your laziness. There's the spiritual work that needs to be done. Says the Nesiv Shalom, that's what they went to spy out the land. Now it makes sense. Now I get it. Moshe Rabbeinu doesn't care. You got Amalek there, and you got some giants. He can't care about giants. He cares about what the giants and Amalek symbolize. What's really going on? What's the spiritual wavelength there? What's the energy there? What is the tension there? What do we need to spiritually overcome to get there? And that's why Hashem gave it a clue. When Hashem said, Shlach Lachah, Hashem was saying to Moshe, even in the answer, just go what the answer was. The answer was Moses. His humility was what's needed and is needed nowadays to succeed in Israel. Let's explain. Says the Nesiv Shalom, says the Kabbalist, the clipper of Israel is ego, is arrogance. That's why they were giants. That's why there's gigantic fruit. They were mirroring, they were manifesting the clippers, which is this gigantic ego, this I know best, I know best. Why is it when we go to Israel, everyone's shouting, everyone, I know best, I know best. Only in Israel did the taxi drivers tell you when to get out. Normally you ask the taxi drivers when to get out. And that's going on all over Israel, that kind of craziness. That's the clipper. That's the shell. They understood that the work is to learn humility, is to be like Moshe Rabbeinu. So where did they go wrong? If the tzaddikim understood that, where did they go wrong? Let's go even deeper now. This is the last part of the onion that we're going to go into. What's really going on, explains the Kabbalist, really only with the Arizal do we start understanding what's really going on in the Panemius, in the inner world of the Torah. And there's a great tzaddik called the Bnei Yisospa, which explains the following. Here we go. Moshe Rabbeinu told, and I'd heard this from the great tzaddik Moshe Weinberger, thank you. And here's what happens. My dear friends, there's two phases. When Mashiach comes, I'm going to be giving a few talks about Mashiach soon. When Mashiach comes, there's two phases. There's Mashiach ben Yosef, Mashiach ben David. There's Mashiach from Joseph himself, and there'll be Messiah from King David. And that embodies the two different spiritual roles of the matriarchs. There's a Rachel and a Leah job, spirituality. All of us in life, we have the Rachel Joseph time, and we have the Leah David time. Joseph comes from Rachel. Rachel was Joseph's mum. And Leah was the great-great-grandmother of King David. What's the difference between Leah and Rachel? You see, Rachel is easy to describe. It's what's called in Kabbalah, the Zohar calls it Iskalio, the revealed spiritual world. Let me explain. There's two different ways to connect to Hashem, my friends. The easy way, which isn't that easy, but it's so beautiful when you get it. It's just to see the glory and the majesty and the radiance and the beauty, and for your soul to engage in Hashem's soul and to be in this spiritual bubble. That's what Shabbos is. That's what Torah is. That's what Yeshiva is. Right now, if you're really with me, we're now just getting lost in Torah. We're learning Torah, teaching Torah. We're just engaging in Torah. There's just mitzvahs around us, hopefully. We're just surrounded by the clouds of glory. We're surrounded by Rachel. We're surrounded by the beauty. It says the Rachel was very beautiful. It's not referring merely to her physical beauty. It's referring to a spiritual beauty. It's the Sefer Torah. Sefer Torah comes in the room. I literally, my heart is going like that when the Sefer Torah is there. And I just want to go and give it a kiss. And during COVID, it's been very interesting because people shouldn't be going kissing the Sefer Torah. It's like, I want to give you a kiss, but I can't. But this is like my kiss to you. I'd like to kiss you. Because we just want to be drawn to the Torah. That's the Rachel style of getting close to Hashem. My dear friends, there's another style, which is called the Leah style, which in Kabbalah is called the Iskasio. That is when you're all working in your job. And Hashem asks you to be in your job, not for you to make money, but for you to find Hashem through your job. For you to learn the messages of spirituality within your job. For you to be the light to the nations within your job. For your surroundings to see that's what it means to be a Jewish person. You're so ethical. You're so truthful. You're so polite. You're so generous. You're so caring. You're so God-fearing. That's the way to connect to Hashem through the Leah. Moshe Rabbeinu said to the spies the following words. Lasor es haaretz. I want you to go and scout out the land. The way Torah works, they're acronyms for spiritual words. Lator et haaretz. The first letters of each word is Lamed, Aleph, Hey, Leah. Moshe Rabbeinu is saying to them, it's time now to go to be Leahs. It's time now to enter the messianic world of King David. We've had it easy out here in the desert. We've had the Rachel kind. It's all been singing beautiful songs and just seeing the miracles and the clouds of glory and the manna from heaven. It's Shabbos every day. and we're learning Torah every day, and we don't have to go to work. We're just able to be on spiritual holiday every day. It's time to get to work. It's time to find Hashem from the ground. They said, Eretz Ocheles Yeshver. It's a land which is killing its inhabitants. They couldn't cope with it. They didn't want it. They didn't feel they're capable of it. They said, we're not ready for that. We like this too much. We'll fail trying to live the David style. It's like when I was in yeshiva, a lot of people in yeshiva, they never want to leave. And some of them don't, literally. And when I go back to my yeshiva 30 years later, guys are still sitting in the same chair, at the same table. They don't want to leave. It's spiritually addictive. I didn't want to leave. It's like you're in the Garden of Eden. Why would you leave? Why would you leave? I don't want to leave. If you could go back to the Garden of Eden, like, I'm staying in the Garden of Eden. Life sometimes pulls you, but on a deep level, most of us have to spend time outside the garden. Most of us have to spend time in the world, engaging with clients on the internet, but not for the sake of the internet, because you're meant to find Hashem through your work, find Hashem within physicality, find Hashem in Miami, in Switzerland. Julia from Sweden, France, America, wherever the heck you are right now, coming to London soon. It's hard. I didn't want to leave yeshiva. A lot of people don't, but that's where they went wrong. And that's why it says they went to a place, Ad Rehov Labo Chamat, which is the acronym for Rachel. They were like, we're staying in the Rachel world. We can't. That's what's really going on. They didn't feel they were going to succeed. It's like if you were to say to me, Rabbi Hill, you've got to go to Iran and be the rabbi for the 7 Jews in Iran. I would probably feel, I don't think I'm capable of that. It's for me to go to a place where there's no minyan, where there's no kind of spiritual hub. I wouldn't be ready for that. I wouldn't be ready for that. And by the way, that's why it says Jacob, when he married Leah, he really didn't want to. It says in the Bible, Hashem saw that Leah was hated. It doesn't mean that Jacob hated Leah. Jacob hated the Leah concept. He hated the notion that he's now going to have to go to work and become an accountant and a lawyer and a doctor and fight in the army. That's why King David was happy to fight in the army. He fought on the front line because that was him. He got it. He didn't see a contradiction. He was able to engage in the physical world totally and see Hashem. He didn't need to stay in the garden. King David embodied and was the front line because he saw Hashem wherever he was. Most of us mere mortals and the spies felt they couldn't do that. And as Sivan said, that was their mistake. That was their lack of faith. And there was 2 areas of their lack of faith. Number 1, lack of faith in Hashem. If Hashem said that's what you do. Moshe, if your Rebbe, Moshe Rabbeinu says, go in time for a layer existence, they should have done that. But on a deeper level, I'm going to conclude with this. And for me, this is the most potent and powerful part of tonight, which could be one of the most powerful lines I've said in my 150 classes I've given since COVID started on these online talks. Here we go. It's a verse, and I want you to look at that verse and just see it with your own eyes, because it's unbelievable. And we all make this mistake, and we've got to stop making it. And if we stop it, our lives will be better. It's at the end of chapter 13, verse 33. Everyone have a look, verse 33, chapter 13. Here's what their spies said. It says, and Sham, and there we saw the giants. We saw the giants, and we appeared like grasshoppers in our eyes, and that's how we were in their eyes. The famous story of like Gulliver's Travels comes from this story in the Torah, that there were all these giants, and they felt there were these tiny insects and grasshoppers. Says the Kotzker Rebbe, and Rav Tzadok HaKohen is going to talk about it. They made 2 tragic mistakes here. Mistake number 1, they said, we appeared like grasshoppers in our eyes. Remember, everything's referring to spirituality. They felt there were spiritual grasshoppers. They felt they couldn't spiritually access the level that Moshe was telling them to access. They didn't realize how great they were. They didn't realize they could morph into living a spiritual world as a worker. as an accountant and a doctor and a lawyer. They just didn't feel they could cope with the test that Hashem had sent them. They had low self-esteem. They had low spiritual self-esteem. They didn't realize how beautiful they were, how great they were, how amazing they were. But even worse, what did they say? And that's how we were in their eyes. How dare they start guessing, speculating how other people viewed them? They shouldn't have cared less. You shouldn't care how people view you. If you are doing the right thing in Hashem's eyes and you're proud and confident, that should be it. Other people have got a problem, their problem. The fact that they projected their insecurities and how other people they perceived viewed them is messed up. Says the Kotzker Rebbe, we should never care what other people feel. We should never, oh my gosh, they're not going to like me. Those people aren't going to like me. I don't think they like me. See the way they were looking at me? Did you see the way they were looking at us? They definitely, half of it's normal paranoia. Second of all, my friends, it's irrelevant. It's not, Hashem hasn't given us responsibility to start making conclusion about how other people perceive us. Hashem only cares how you care for him, for yourself, and for others. That's it. How other people, and Larry's absolutely right. You feel lowly, then other people will start seeing that. You show confidence, other people will feel that. You feel that you're a beautiful soul, other people will feel that. And I finish off with this amazing of Tzadok HaKohen. What does Hashem say to Abraham? Let me find the verse. I think it's in Genesis, chapter 10, verse 33, I think. Let's have a look. If it's it, chapter 10, Hashem help me, verse, no, it's not. So essentially, I'll find it for you later. Essentially, Hashem says to Abraham in the covenant the following. Hashem takes Abraham out. He takes Abraham out and says, Abraham, look at the stars. You know what those stars are? They're your children. They're us. They're the Jewish people. They're going to be tzaddikim. They're the righteous of the righteous of the righteous. Your children, can you imagine you were showed by Hashem? Let me show you what your children are going to be. He shows them Moses and Joshua and King David and the greatest of the greats and us. He showed Abraham tzaddikim. Abraham could have said, like the spies said, no, I'm not capable of that. Impossible. It's an impossible dream. But the verse says, Abraham believed Hashem. It says, Abraham believed Hashem. And then it says, Hashem is very impressed with that. What's going on? Because Hashem showed Abraham a high bar that he wasn't there yet. And the success of Abraham was that he had faith in Hashem and faith in Hashem's mission, and thus faith in himself. He said, whoa, okay, if Hashem feels I'm capable, I'm capable. Says the Kotzker Rebbe, my friends, that's what we need to do. You need to work out where your higher bar is. And your Yetzer Hara has been telling you, the Clippers are telling you, I can't go there. I'm not worthy. I can't achieve that. Not for me. It's not for me. My situation, God knows that I'm not ready for that. I'm not there for that. And maybe you're not in certain areas, as I've spoken to some of you privately about. But maybe and I promise you there is at least one thing that you could be doing, that you should be doing, if you believed you're worthy of it. My friends, you're worthy of it. You're worthy of the Torah. You're worthy of greatness. You're worthy of righteousness. You're worthy of beauty. Hashem has promised you that you're the eternal nation, you'll never be destroyed, and one day you're going to get Mashiach through all your spiritual work. Believe in that and it will happen. Believe in yourself, and not only in areas of spirituality. Maybe for those of you who are converting to Judaism, you're thinking, can I really achieve that? Then you say, yes, I can. I can. If it's a business opportunity and there's a big jump in ambition, but if that possibility opens up, go for it. Believe in it. If there's a relationship you feel, oh, I'm not worthy of that person, the fact that Hashem has brought you in their life means you are worthy. Do it. Don't let your Yetzer Hara make the mistake that the spies made. Oh, I'm not worthy. I'm like a grasshopper. Other people view me as a grasshopper. God forbid, chas v'shalom, don't say that. Hashem views you like the stars in the sky. All you've got to do is view yourself the way Hashem views you. I always say to people, I did coaching and I've got a few more slots left for anyone who's interested. When people tell me they've got low self-esteem and people tell me they're failures, it's saying, no. Who's the person who loves you most in the world? Who sees you for really what you are? And whoever it is, it could be your mom, it could be your friend, it could be your professor. And then I say, that's how you need to see yourself. That's the truth. That's the truth. We have a distorted view of ourselves made by the Yetzer Hara, which is there to impede us and obstruct us and curtail us from achieving our potential, which is the tragedy of the spies. They had it. They had the Messianic King David era in their hands, and they just dropped the baton. They said, whoa, I'm scared. Fear got to them, but it was fear of their own potentiality. Their low self-esteem stopped them from becoming the greats they could have become. Let's not make that mistake again. May Hashem give us the strength to overcome that self-doubt within us, to overcome that low self-esteem within us, to see what Hashem sees, to see that we are that stars in the sky that can become great. And please God, by seeing it and believing in it, Hashem will give us the divine help to achieve it.